Welcome to Leadership Synergized, and it's an honor to have you join us. We like to bring guests that have been there, done that, and are continuing to go forward in serving their heart, God, and just the mission to help pay things forward with a legacy that. So I'm just so appreciative you've taken this moment. We're into our third year now with this podcast, and it means a great deal to me that you continue to come back. And I know with the confidence that you're going to find a nugget today because we have a very special guest. You can see her smiling face on our screen, taking a break from her extremely busy schedule. But Ms. Becky Spieth, a author, coach, trainer, speaker, a founding member of the Maxwell leadership team, the John Maxwell team at that point in time, just an outstanding child of God that balances and places faith above all else with her servantship in that aspect. And Miss Spieth, God bless you for being here, my friend. I know you're super busy and you've got a million other things you could probably be doing at this moment, but thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Kevin. I'm so excited to be here. I just feel like this is just another step in the divine assignment that we have together.
Ms. Spieth, there are frontline leaders, middle managers today that, well, but I'm kind of stuck in the middle, or I'm the last, or I'm the first line of defense. How can I stay true if somebody's telling me to do something else that I feel doesn't need to be done in that regard without risking that type of setting today, going through what you just described, to sacrifice my job fully? What are some things like that you believe today's leaders are facing? Maybe how can they help themselves, so to speak? Because things that we see should be easy typically aren't never meant to be easy in our life.
That's so true. It is hard when you hit the law of the lid, right? John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid. Like if the leaders here at this level, like say a 7, the people that they're leading, they can never get above the 7 because that's their leader. And sometimes that is really frustrating. I would strongly recommend to just commit your position into a covenant with God, because God is ultimately our provider. And if you're not a person of faith, commit to doing what's right, no matter what, because it will be honored. It may not be honored in that season or with that leader, but if we can honor and respect and be a good follower while we are leading 360, so leading that leader and leading the others around us, always doing the right thing, it will eventually pay off. Now, like my situation, I lost that position, but God positioned me into something so much better. And to be honest with you, I'm much better as an entrepreneur than I am as an employee, because I got all these ideas. I got all these things that I always want to be building and growing and empowering other people to do. So maybe it's the next step to what's next for you. I know that it's challenging because we've also been in a situation where we've been without income for a significant amount of time. But we've also grown to a new level, and we looked at what some of those other opportunities are. And when I find myself in one of those situations, I always go back to, like you mentioned earlier, that quiet time, those still moments. I use it for prayer, and I ask God, what can I do in this situation? Or how can I create a win-win? Or how can I have a supernatural idea that can change my industry? And then very carefully, loving and respectfully go to my leadership and see how we can partner together. But they also many times feel like there's a threat, right? If they see you growing as a leader, an insecure leader will try to keep you down. So the most important thing you can do is come in a non-threatening way where they don't feel threatened, and have this be where you don't necessarily have to get the credit for it, but you're doing the right thing. And I promise you, others around you will see it, or God will position you in a place where you'll be able to lead more fully.
Thank you for sharing that. As you're talking, Ms. Spieth, one thing that comes to my mind is many times the greatest challenge, and it goes back to our conversation on empowerment and faith, the greatest challenge for leaders is sustaining creativity or innovation within the team itself. Yeah. So much seems to get in the way of that. You and I have talked a bit about, are we too transactional? We need data to make decisions, right? We need the pertinent data. But sometimes I question myself, am I too transactional that I lose the heart and soul of transformation? But that all comes through creativity and innovation. Talk a bit about your experiences in working with the people you've worked with, and what have you seen some best practices on leaders who are really good and can keep that creativity alive?
I think it just goes back to vision casting and vision leak, right? Um, if we can keep the vision before people, that's our job as a leader, honestly. We are to be the provider of hope, and we are to not solve all the problems, but we are to keep the vision in front of others and keep them engaged with the vision. And so if we keep that as our main focus, it's easy to keep that space, but then also to encourage creativity and innovation. And we have to remember as leaders that we have to be super mindful that when somebody comes to you with their creative idea or their innovation, if it's outside of our alignment of what we really expected or what was in our mind's eye, we have to realize that we need to honor them for what they are bringing to the table. This is their best idea. This is what they feel is very important. And then see how can it be integrated, if it can be integrated, or how can it be integrated? Because as leaders, we usually have a high ego and we're thinking, well, my idea is the best idea. But I can tell you that anytime I've really put my ego to the side, I've let others share, put their input in, that even though it doesn't look like exactly how I thought it might look in my mind's eye, that usually it turns out way better because there's something about that collaboration. And then it's also going to give them a new level of comfort, because most of the time when they've brought an idea forward, it's been squashed. They've been told, no, it's not a good idea, or we're not going to do that. And that deflates the person, and they're going to stop coming with creativity. They're going to stop coming to you with pretty much anything because they don't feel like you value them. And so if you can do that and have that open mind, have that open door, have that open heart, it can make a world of difference with getting your team to be more creative and innovative by honoring and celebrating that, even if it's not implemented at the time.
And linking to our earlier conversation here during this episode on busyness, creativity, innovation many times doesn't stand a chance in that busyness mindset or world in that setting. Having the ability to take that deep breath, which many times is very, very uncomfortable for the leaders of today's world.
Yeah, you are so right.
Ms. Spieth, as we think about a leader today and some of the challenges they face, in the world, which probably are very similar to eras of when you were working as a vice president, going back 20 or 30 years, but they take on a different magnification today, somewhat because there's fewer resources in our world to get things accomplished with in many aspects, but yet there's more and more opportunity from the expertise. For example, I know you dedicate your focus and time to help members of the Maxwell leadership team with training hours upon hours each week. How can someone who really has never dove into establishing and executing their own growth plan, how can they get started and ensure, you mentioned the word rhythm, to that personal improvement and growth?
Oh, that's such a great question. My favorite book of John Maxwell's all time is The 15 Laws of Growth. I would strongly suggest grab that book. If you want to start a personal growth plan, make a commitment and set a goal. I do this every single year. I go away in November for a few days, just me, God, my journal, my Bible, and sometimes a book. And I set the rhythm for the upcoming year. I put into my calendar all the important family things first, all my spiritual things between me and God, those are in there. And then I start looking and doing some reflection. So I reflect back on, what was this year truly? And then how can I go forward? And you can do this at any time of the year, right? And then I ask God to give me a word that's going to frame the rhythm for my upcoming year. This year my word is yes. So that's exciting because I'm saying yes to a lot of new opportunities. But I've had flourish or strategy. I've had all kinds of different things, but it's just something that I feel is going to hang and frame that. And then realizing that I need to grow in different areas of my life. So I usually pick just one goal or, one framework that I want to have for each of the important areas of my life. So my faith, my family, my business, sales, revenue, my giving, my physical health, like all of those. And then from there, I determine, when I have all those in front of me, I determine just one that I really want to make sure that no matter what gets accomplished over this upcoming year. And I would suggest that you pick that, and then start looking for resources that are going to be in alignment with what you want your rhythm to look like. And if you're not an entrepreneur, it can still happen inside of a business. How do you want to grow as a leader? How do you want to grow in that position? And realize that it's not just about, when we look at a growth plan, it's not just about how you want to grow professionally, it's personally and professionally, because you're an integrated being. But if you're looking for a first resource, I would strongly suggest that you get the 15 Laws of Growth. It will help you to map out the different areas of your life, and it talks about being intentional. But then another thing I would really recommend that you do is you get a mentor or a coach, or both. And in my life, I've got multiple coaches and I've got many mentors, because a mentor is kind of like helping you skip ahead and speed up the process to success, because they'll tell you the things like, I can go to them and I can ask, like, I'm thinking about doing this idea, I'm so excited. And they're like, oh yeah, I thought that was a good idea too. And it bombed on me. And this is how it bombed. This is why it bombed. I can still make the choice to do it, but I've got this additional wisdom. So if you want a growth plan, get a coach who's going to help you go from where you are now to where you want to be, by pulling out the best and drawing out the best of you in the process. So coaching is different than mentoring. And a mentor is someone that's a step or two ahead of you that can say, hey, this is how I've been on this journey and how I can help you.
Listening to your response there, Ms. Spieth, I jumped back. You talked about the guidance that John Maxwell gave you early on, right? You have to care for people and value others. And you immediately jumped in your heart. Well, I already do that, right? In
Yeah.
that setting. And it brings me to a point yeah, you can value others, you can care for others, but if that leader doesn't have that true sense of love for mankind or sister kind, womankind, there can still be a gap in connection, which gets into what John says, right? To be effective as a leader, you got to be able to influence people in your life, both as a leader, but as a follower as well.
Yes. Yeah. You can't be a good leader if you can't be a good follower. Yeah, absolutely. To me, that's what I look for when I'm working, because I build teams all the time, and my husband does in his business as well, and we co-do that together. And I look for who are the best followers, because I know they'll be the best leaders. They've got that servant's heart, but they also have been gathering the wisdom along the way to be able to step into that. I can help them develop the skill of leadership. I can't give them the heart. I can't give them the behaviors that need to be internal to them. Only they can make those choices. And if they have those and they can be a great follower, I know they can be great leaders.
Ms. Spieth, as you talked about your experience and starting out as a leader, maybe when you first recognized it, it seems to almost be a seamless flow from you from your childhood ages in those regard and experiences. But if you could think about what was the biggest challenge for you to overcome initially as you began to see that you could take this leadership thing and impact more and more individuals in life?
The biggest challenge for me, honestly, was right here.
Mm,
It was in my mindset. I listened to the enemy tell
mm,
me, well, who do you think you are? And because I've lived every moment of my life, I knew exactly who I was, right? And I questioned those things. I can remember the first time I had a heart surgeon want me to coach them, because they were wanting to leave their practice and start an entirely different business model. And I just thought, I don't know anything about heart surgery, and I'm definitely not as educated as you are. And I definitely don't have the money. And I don't feel like I'm younger than you. And like, I don't think I'm your person, right? All these doubts, I can't, and all these reasons why.
mm.
And I thought, I had to take a step back, and God really checked my spirit on this, because it was like, well, why would I have asked him to ask you if you weren't already qualified? And then I realized that I had so much more I could give. Even like, and a lot of people will laugh at this, because I coach a lot of moms that are transitioning into the marketplace. And especially around the COVID time, right? Because I had homeschooled my kids, ran multiple businesses. I knew how to do all the stuff that they were trying to figure out in a day when the world shut down. And so just being able to help people see their transferable skills. I wasn't doing that for myself. So if, as a mom, like, you're great at project management, whether you want to admit it or not, you are. If you have any type of a system, you can write SOPs. A household cannot run without SOPs. It just cannot. And unless you're living in massive chaos, and these were all things I had to learn as a mom, as a wife, but then I would say, oh, I'm just was the thing that I needed to overcome more so than anything. And now, do I still get super nervous when I'm invited into some of these rooms? Absolutely. God has positioned me right now, and I don't understand why, and I don't know exactly what it's for, but I'm continuing to say yes, with one of the wealthiest men in the world. And he's everywhere I turn around, literally standing next to me in the most strange places. And we're developing a friendship and a connection. I don't know where that's going to lead. I definitely don't feel I'm on the same level as he is. I'm not worth 10.6 billion with a B, like he is, but he's also very transparent about how he came from very humble beginnings, and he just kept saying yes to God and yes to furthering the kingdom. And look where he is now. He's got just an incredible global business, many of them, and bringing things to our community that we never would have expected. What am I supposed to do in that situation? I don't know. Right now, develop that relationship. And in the past, I would have shied away and said I didn't belong at that table. And once I finally realized who I was and who I was in Christ, that I can do all things through him because he's going to strengthen me, and that he's called me to speak to kings and he's called me to speak to nations. I grew up on a farm, and I grew up in the middle of nowhere. And many times the floorboard of our truck we would drive to back and forth to school didn't have a floorboard. We put down a 2x4, and underneath that you could see the ground. Like, I grew up incredibly poor, and to know that this is who I'm rubbing shoulders with. But when you say yes to God and you value people and you want to leave them better and you empower them into their greatness, others want to be with you, and they want to help you fulfill the call in your life, just like you want to help them fulfill the call in their life, because it's really not anything about business. It truly is about life transformation and kingdom building.
Thank you for sharing that. Just so inspirational. You are awesome. You're transformational and so positive. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, my friend, from the very bottom of my heart.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
God bless you. And thank you for watching and/or listening. Remember, you matter, you count. God's there for all of us. Until next time, God bless.